You're in the right place. This is the Eatfluencer Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Maggie Landes. Together, we are going to unpack everything about eating and discover the what, when, and how that will let you lead your best life. This is not your doctor's conversation about nutrition. Today is when you can start to love eating again. Let food be food and you be you. Get ready to get Eatfluenced. Welcome back, everybody, to the Eatfluencer Podcast. I'm Maggie Landes, and I am the diet culture disrupting physician who also is a nutritionist, who also has a podcast. And you are here listening to episode number 38 of the Eatfluencer Podcast. And this one is titled Creating Weight-Inclusive Healthcare with Dr. Michelle O'Brien. And I have been so excited to share this interview with you. I've told you before, I do only about a third or a quarter of my shows as interview shows. So I'm pretty selective about who I want to come on and share this space with me. And that is mostly because I'm extremely scrutinizing about other people who claim to be anti-diet or claim to be health at every size aligned, come to find out that they're not totally there. But this episode is no question well-vetted, fantastic information. And I connected with Dr. Michelle O'Brien, you guessed it, on Clubhouse. And she is a family physician who practices exclusively in a health at every size aligned sort of manner. She also has a master's degree in public health, so a woman after my own heart, and specializes in maternal and child health. So she and I are on the same wavelength. And as soon as I connected with her and heard her story and her message and how she's really creating a movement for her patients, I knew I had to talk to her. So her career has been focused on, like I said, the well-being of women and children. And she's working on, enhancing her HAES-aligned practice using, listen to this, how cool this is, shame resilience work from Brene Brown, self-compassion practices, and lifestyle medicine. So I really think she represents the future of healthcare, and I'm so proud to know her. Our conversation today is great. It is, I think I said at the beginning, it's like, when one unicorn meets another unicorn in the forest, they immediately become best friends. Because I've told you many times before, this practice is pretty countercultural to our clinical training and our formative education. So it's really just a delight to meet Dr. O'Brien and to have her as a guest on the podcast. I will say that at one point during the podcast, she has some dogs in the background. You know what? This is real life. And frankly, I didn't want to cut out any of her explanation or her conversation, so I just left the dogs in there. So enjoy this podcast with Dr. Michelle O'Brien and her dogs. All right. And I am so glad that Dr. Michelle O'Brien is here today. Thanks for being on the podcast, Michelle.
Thanks for having me, Maggie. I'm just really excited to talk with you more about the subject.
Well, the doctors that work in the anti-diet space, this is like a rare find. This is like a unicorn. So when I find another unicorn, I immediately latch on. So
I felt exactly the same way when we connected. Like, finally, somebody.
I know. I wish it didn't feel like that, but it does. It's kind of a lonely space. So I want you to introduce to the listener sort of how they know my story, but to hear a little bit about your story, how as a physician you landed here, because, most doctors don't practice in this way. Mm-hmm. So, I know it didn't come from medical school. So spoiler alert.
most definitely not. Well, so how I came to the space was kind of like, I wouldn't say unintentionally, but it took me a little by surprise too. I have a style with patients where I'm pretty collaborative and really try to work with them where they're at. And was a couple of years ago, I had a patient come in, and my organization had just kind of started this new initiative where their BMI was discussed at every visit. And it was even like the medical assistants that would start the conversation. And so I think something had been said, I don't know what it was, but I kind of offhand said to the patient, well, like, that's not why you're here. I don't think that's really important or relevant right now. And she's like, oh yeah, I know. And I said, what? She's like, oh, I know. That's why I'm here to see you. And I was like, well, tell me more. And she's like, oh, well, we've got this Facebook community called Fat Twin Cities, and you're all over it. People saying that they should come and see you. And I was like, oh. And then I talked to a dietitian friend of mine, and she's like, oh yeah, you're well known in the HAES community. And I was like, the what community? And
so you were doing it without even knowing you were doing it.
Yeah. And I just kind of, then a whole world was open to me, and I was like, okay, this resonates with how I want to practice. And just started reading more, got involved in some local groups, and just am on an adventure of learning. So I'm glad to have found somebody else, because I feel like there's just so much more that can be done with this.
Oh, it's so important. And the HAES, I've talked about this a lot, where it was HAES, and what we're saying is health at every size, which is the book and the movement that Dr. Lindo Bacon sort of started or revolutionized, the idea that health and health promoting behavior can happen in any size person. And I feel as a physician, we have like we really have an obligation to that. That's in line with our Hippocratic Oath and all that mumbo jumbo. It's really, there's so much that it actually astounds me. I'm speechless, because it kind of astounds me that doctors would not do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Does that surprise you that this is like, that you and I are the outliers?
Yes and no. Yes, because I truly got into healthcare like most people because I wanted to help people. And so to me, that goes hand in hand, that you help people no matter where, no matter what the circumstance. But in a lot of ways, it doesn't surprise me because of just the way we're trained and how the healthcare system is changing. It doesn't give you a lot of time to put that kind of energy out there. Like we're measured on so many things. There's so many things coming at you, and some people just grow tired of it and they just kind of plug along and try to get their tasks done. And if someone's telling them they need to get their patient's BMI down, that's what they do then.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of problems with our formal education and the formal education that people becoming dietitians and stuff have. And we'll that's kind of another conversation, but in terms of the practice, like practicing medicine, what are some things you see that are really disadvantageous in our environment? I mean, that really set us up for this to not happen.
I mean, I think time is a big factor. I mean, they're trying to get so many people into a short period of time, and it leaves little time for actual listening. It's little time for multiple concerns. And so depending on the patient and the provider, someone decides what the priority is going to be. And a lot of times it's not the patient that decides what the priority is going to be. And so when we have measures like the BMI that is being tracked, sometimes that comes to the top of the pile for that day's encounter without considering how that makes the actual person who's sitting in the chair across from you feel.
Right. Well, we've already been talking almost 10 minutes, which is about the length of a doctor's visit.
Yes, exactly.
And we haven't even we're just starting. So
exactly.
In the idea of unpacking all these issues about nutrition and weight and body, and we have to talk about sexual health and domestic violence and all the things, that we're supposed to be dealing with. That's, we're just set up to not do this. So I think you're
Yeah.
probably right. A lot of doctors take the path of least resistance, which is just avoiding the whole thing.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like I'm judging. I'm not judging. I feel sometimes my insistence on continuing it to do it the way that I want to do it is such a detriment to my own personal peace of mind, because I'm continually banging my head against the wall. I sometimes wish I could be just like, okay, I'm gonna go, go with the flow, but I just, in the core, I just can't do that. And so I tend to to make my life harder than it needs to be, but it's because I really truly want to show up for my patients and hear what they have to say.
Yeah. And we're not throwing doctors under the bus. Trust me, we
No.
are doctors.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I say this all the time, that they come from a sideways education. They have a broken practice infrastructure, system, healthcare system. We're just people. Okay. I mean, just let's be honest. Doctors
Yeah.
are just people. We shop
Yeah.
at the same grocery store. We look at the same internet. We watch the same TV shows as everybody else. We are influenced by diet culture as well.
Oh, most definitely.
And so if a individual doctor hasn't sort of developed that personal defense or resilience, like, of course it's going to be a diet culture experience in the office.
Yeah, because that is our culture altogether. And I think one of our first conversations we had on Clubhouse, I spoke up because I feel I have a lot of imposter syndrome working in this realm, because I still struggle myself with accepting myself the way I am, because of the years and years and years of conditioning to be told that the shape, the size and shape of my body was not okay. That I should care more about food, what food I'm eating, and not think about what other things it brings to me as well.
So I'm interested. I want to at some point at the end of this conversation get into some sort of practical tips on how people can really navigate this conversation in a doctor's office, assuming that they're not at your office, because like I said, you're like the unicorn.
I'm not perfect. I don't get it right.
Well, and I get, like I said, I get inquiries all the time that are like, can you give me any, HAES-aligned doctors in Texas? And I'm like, no. There's only 30 million people in the state of Texas, and I don't know of one. I mean, that's just how terrible this is. So, but I'm interested. Let's back up a step here. I know you have an interest in this whole idea of shame and vulnerability, and you and I both fangirls of Brene Brown. And I have to say, by the way, she's a Texan.
Yep.
Where does that fit into your sort of ideology and your, like, where you sit with all these issues of weight stigmatization and that sort of thing?
Well, so I think, I'm huge fan, read all her work. I've actually done her daring wave facilitator training, did that a couple of years ago, and I'm still working out ways of working that into my work. I mean, it shows up in one-on-one, but I really want to figure out a way to do more with it, because I think it's just her work. Everyone needs to be introduced to her work on shame and vulnerability. So, I went into healthcare like most people, wanting to help, and just found, that shame is just not a great way to help people. And it seems like, intentional or not intentional, when we approach weight the way we do in the exam room, it does bring a lot of shame with it. Sometimes just because, again, of the culture, people when they hear that brought up, it automatically brings up shame. The other aspect of it is the vulnerability. I'm fairly vulnerable with my patients about my own struggles. And I think that really helps build our alliance, because they know that I get what they're going through, and they know that I'm truly there to help them in whatever way they need help, not my own agenda.
Yeah. And that's really, that really builds that connection when they see you as a person, I mean, and it really shortens that distance, because a patient in an exam room is in a sort of inferior position. I mean, that's the culture. It's not that we intend to create that, but that's how I feel when I'm the patient seeing my doctor. It's just, that's the culture. But, for them to see you as having credibility with their lived experience and not just, you're wearing the white coat, you've got the diploma, this is what you say, and it's like biblical law, it's, I think that probably goes a really long way. Shame is, spoiler alert, if y'all haven't read Brene Brown, like, shame's not really a good motivational tool for anything. It doesn't work in medicine, doesn't work in parenting, doesn't work in relationships, doesn't work in business, just generally doesn't work.
But it takes some learning to understand when you're doing it, because especially if you've been raised in a family where that was used probably lovingly, because that's what they learn. You sometimes don't realize that you're doing it. And so it does take some mindfulness and kind of stepping back and looking at, okay, what you said, how that person reacted. I love the story that she's told multiple times about the letter that she received she went speaking somewhere, and a woman wrote her a letter and said, I want to thank you for your work. My mom heard you speak, and she called me or wrote to me. I don't remember how she communicated, but she said, I am so sorry that I shamed you growing up. What I meant to do was guilt you. But I now realize that, that wasn't the right thing to do. And the woman said, and the thing is, I'm 50 years old and my mom is 75 or something along that line. So like, we're never too old to be open to new ways of approaching things. And so it's an endeavor that I'm going to continue for my life, for myself, for my patients, for my daughter, of just continually trying to see people for the humans that they are, that are flawed, that don't do everything right, but that can make incredible changes in their life when they have the right tools and the right support.
Right. So you mentioned having a daughter, and I know you're a family medicine doctor, so you deal with families and parents and children, all comers. What in your mind is the ticket to breaking this sort of generational cycle that we're in with diet culture and weight stigma? Because I've got a daughter too. I've got a son also, but I do think this is particularly apropos for girls turning into women.
Yeah.
What are you thinking you can do as a practitioner or as a mother to help this conversation not be the conversation that our children are having 40 years from now?
I think it's setting an example. And so I both try to do that myself. And then if I am talking to a parent and they seem receptive to the idea that they truly are like, I just want to help my kids, I want them to be healthy, and talking to them about not criticizing their body in front of their kids, not, saying, oh, I'm so fat, or, making those kind of disparaging remarks that kids internalize. I mean, I hear it from my daughter. She's 6, and I don't say those things, but she still is hearing that in culture. And so I am very careful about how I approach it when I hear her say, oh, that, that person is fat, or, mom, you have a big booty, and I'll just say, well, is there anything wrong with that? People that are bigger, and she'll say, oh no. And I think, so I don't think she hasn't put some of the moral shame-based stuff on there, but she's hearing those messages in all kinds of forms. So I think
we're not immune to it. I mean, it's not even if you're, Dr. O'Brien's child, you're not immune to the rest of culture.
No.
Right. Well, and it's so tricky because it's super subtle. Like I talk to families all the time. I'm a pediatrician, and the mom, I'm saying moms, because this,
Yeah,
I think
that's,
they're kind
yeah,
of, let's be honest, they're driving the bus.
yep.
They
When it comes to healthcare, they are.
they certainly are. And they'll say stuff like, oh, well, I never tell my kids they're fat, or I don't talk about their weight. And that's a pretty like low hanging fruit. All
Mhm,
right. Like we not overtly fat
mhm.
shaming our children. Okay, good. But all the little things like when we're taking the family selfie and you tell your 4-year-old child, come stand in
Stand
front of
up for,
mommy so her stomach doesn't show, or like stuff like
yeah.
that that's really the same message, even though it's in a much prettier package, it's
Well,
still the same.
because our kids want to be us.
Yeah.
So if they see us not okay with ourselves, then if they resemble us, they think, well, maybe I'm not, and maybe mom doesn't love me. She doesn't love herself. So does she love me? Because I look like her.
Right. Well, and it's distracting from real health promoting behavior, because
Yeah.
when that's the thing that people miss. They think that when doctors like you and I'm sure you probably get little trolley DMs and emails all the time about how we're quote promoting obesity and all this kind of nonsense. It's they're missing the point that we are all for health promotion.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody said we're against health promotion.
Yeah.
We're probably more
That's,
for it than most. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and that's why we're in primary care. That's why we both did our masters in public health. I mean, that's what
Yes.
I've always been about, is health promotion.
Right. But it's this, we have to uncouple the conversation. And this is really challenging. It's challenging for health professionals to um, uncouple this weight and health being synonyms.
Mhm.
So I'd like to hear, how do you, when you're talking to, put the health professionals aside, let's say you're talking
Yeah.
to a patient, what is your answer? And I know what I say, but I'm curious what you say when you're trying to get them to understand what they have been trained to believe, that weight and health are synonyms, and smaller is healthier, larger is less healthy. Like in your words, what's the mini HAES
Any Hayes talk that I give?
mini HAES talk?
Well, I mean, it's hard to like, it depends on the patient. I would say, I mean, a majority of my patients are women. And most of them are middle-aged. And so they're just, they're not happy with the way their bodies are changing, particularly women that are approaching menopause. Things change, as we know. So I often say, if they're saying I need to lose weight, I'll say, tell me more about that. And then I'll ask them what their plans are, because a lot of times they say, I need to lose weight, but they don't even really have an idea about what they want to do. And so then I start to focus the talk on, like, I find that it's helpful, instead of focusing on weight, is to focus on, health behaviors. Because
Well,
we
that's a thing.
know,
That's an
yeah,
action
yeah,
item. That's what I always
yeah,
say. That's a
yeah,
thing you can do.
yeah, yeah. And I, particularly around food and diet, I say, we as humans don't do real well with deprivation. Like, if you say, you can't eat this, what happens? And they're like, oh, that's the only thing I want to eat.
Yeah.
And so I say, how about adding, just try to add in the things that like fruits and vegetables. Like, how are you doing with that? And we'll talk about that. And I'll say, don't eat things that you don't want to eat. I don't want you to eat Brussels sprouts because I said you should eat more vegetables, but you hate Brussels sprouts. Find vegetables that you like and just try to gradually add them in. And some people will find that adding that in, they'll have less cravings, or they'll eat less of the processed and high sugar foods when they're satisfied and their stomachs are full. I really try to get away from the bad food, good food, and, both with adults and particularly children, because I hear my daughter asking all the time, is this healthy? Is this a
yeah.
food, Mom? And I'm like, all food is healthy. It's a fuel. It's just a matter of how much, you have to eat a variety of foods.
Right. Well, that's the whole conversation about elementary school health class is a whole other podcast. Trust me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of adding, of adding brings this idea of curiosity and kind of
Mm-hmm.
open-mindedness instead of this real, nobody wants to be locked in a box. I mean, nobody wants to be caged in with what they're allowed, I'm doing air quotes, allowed to eat and,
Mm-hmm.
not allowed to eat it. It seems much more interesting in the produce section when there's more than just Brussels sprouts.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of choices, and empowering your patients. That doesn't mean that you never ever are going to eat cookies or pizza or whatever
Yeah.
things are.
Or encourage them to take cooking classes, look for cooking classes at like a local co-op or, something like that, where they can learn more about certain types of food that they don't know about. And that can be kind of fun. Exercise is another thing that people, that's going to be their key to losing weight. And I really, really stress to people to find things that you enjoy. Again, not something I'm doing because I have to do it. Right. Things that they're doing because it makes them feel good. And, I have people come in and say, oh, I've been exercising and I'm not losing weight. And we talk about, well, how about how your clothes fitting? What's your muscle mass? How do you feel? Because that's what's important, not the number on the scale.
Yeah, because it's really meaningless. It's I just, if we could go back and look at the 30,000 foot bird's eye view, like the scale is just a measure of gravity. Mm-hmm. It's not, it has nothing to do with your health metrics,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you and I both have seen many, many very slender, totally not healthy people.
Uh-huh.
And so it's not, that's not the ticket. It certainly has nothing to do with your value as a human. So if we can sort of let go of it, we have more space to start thinking about these other things that we want to, try, like you said, try new ways of being not sedentary. And, the idea of exercise is basically not being sedentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it doesn't say you have to do CrossFit.
Yeah, exactly. I often say, I'm not telling you to run a marathon. Like, just if you like walking, go for more walks, or, swimming. If, that's a great form of exercise. It does for a lot of people. That's a hard one because you got to put on a bathing suit if they're not comfortable in their own body. Another area that I've really gotten into, mainly, again, it's personal, is sleep.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have so much trouble with letting our bodies rest. And I don't have insomnia. I just don't give myself enough time to sleep. I stay up way too late because, I just need my me time after, working and taking care of my daughter and getting her to bed. I want some downtime. And then I try to get up in the morning and I'm tired. I drink too much caffeine. It's like that whole cycle. There's lots of research out there that shows being sleep deprived is directly linked to having difficulty maintaining your ideal body weight, not necessarily a set, like you should be in this weight range, but it does not help
kind of your set point. Yeah, your set point.
Yeah, and your set point.
Yeah, and it affects your glucose profile and your blood pressure and all the, all the nerdy stuff that you and I love talking about. But we don't, and you're speaking mom language right there. Yeah. This stay up late, get up early, too much caffeine, can't, we have all done that. All of us. Yeah. There's not a woman listening to this right now.
You take the two, mom and physician, because we're notoriously, or healthcare provider, any healthcare provider.
Yeah.
We're notorious for trying to burn the candle at both ends, and you put two of those together and you're just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And it's really the point I like to make to people is it's not just the idea of you're tired. Like I get that, but it actually causes a physiologic thing in your body where your extra hour of sleep might be better than going to CrossFit at 4:00 in the morning, really, truly in a physical sense.
Yes, because your body needs that time to do all the things that it does when you're resting.
So here's what I want to know. We said at the beginning of this that, you and I are unicorns, which, it's the year 2021. And I still feel like when I find a HAES-aligned anti-diet physician, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I hope that in 5, 10, certainly 20 years, that's not such a fascinoma.
Yes, exactly.
How do we get from here to there? Like, if you are like, what is going to be the thing that tips the tables? Say hello to Dr. O'Brien's dogs.
Sorry, my dogs
no
are
problem.
very
No problem.
protective.
You're probably getting an Amazon package. That's when my dogs go crazy, is when the Amazon guy comes.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the mailman or something.
So I want to feel like I want to continue to feel hopeful that this cultural narrative will change, and particularly this in healthcare, because the thing that makes me the most sad is every day of the week, somebody sends me a message or an email and says, I'm hesitating to go to the doctor because of how I will be treated because of my body. And at the end of the day, that person is not getting the preventative healthcare, sort of the stuff that they need to get, and you have somebody that's 25, 35, 40 years old, never gets a mammogram, never gets a pap smear, never gets their blood pressure checked because they're afraid of what their experience is going to be. I want to fix that. Like, I want you and I to fix that.
Yeah.
How are we going to get there?
Well, it's interesting. I was just talking online. Sorry, I'm gonna shut that door again. I was talking to a friend, another physician colleague online, and I was talking about my dream. I'm still kind of kicking around the idea of trying to do something focused, my practice on. Oh,
that's all right. Hey, listen, this is like hanging out in our living room.
Yeah, they're loud. Selling my house, and so it's very sparse right now. So everything's echoing.
The home staging.
Yes. So I have this idea. I have the Authentic Health Movement was the name that I came up with for my business that doesn't exist. I'm continuing to build, and I was explaining it to her, and all of a sudden it came to me. I was like, well, what I want to do is build a movement around being authentic and healthy. And so, I felt really inspired, like, okay, this is work that I can get behind. But your idea about like, how can we move it forward? Because I get a little discouraged when I'm sure you've heard the statistic of like how long it takes for like cutting edge things to make it into regular practice. Even in our technology, fast-paced world, it takes 15 to 20 years sometimes for things to become part of regular practice.
And this isn't even high tech. This is just us talking.
No.
So
No. But you would think I wouldn't say medicine is on the cutting edge of high tech, because
no,
it's way behind. But you would think our whole society seems to be all about change. But medicine is just it, and it for good, some of it's for good reason. We don't want to be snap changing things and then realizing that that wasn't the right way to go. But I don't think we have time to just sit back and wait for it to change. So one thing that I have thought of that I think, and I know some of my colleagues that I'm in groups with here in the Twin Cities, is aligning with other people who are trying to make changes of accepting people for who they are. So that's affiliating with groups that are LGBTQI, affiliating with groups that are working towards racial justice, because it really is all of us are working towards trying to get people to treat other human beings like human beings.
Right. And that's the thing, is that I think this idea of body diversity and size diversity is like the last one to the party,
Yes. Yeah.
Like we're sort of, and I'm not saying it's fixed, but we all have a general sense that people exist in different skin colors, and people may have different sexual preferences, and people come in different genders, but we think everybody is the same physical size.
Yeah. Or should be.
Yeah. Should be.
Yeah.
And it's just when we accept that there is going to be diversity, then we can like get to the real conversation of health promotion, which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know,
it is the one I've heard people say, it is the one area where it is still socially acceptable almost across the board to discriminate and treat people badly, because you know, you still find your people that are racist, or people who are not accepting of gay or lesbian people, but you know, there's a bigger shift there, but kind of across the spectrum, everyone agrees fat people are lazy, and they don't have any willpower, and that's not how you should want to be. And
it's not helpful when there's a bunch of, you know, white collar professionals that went to medical school promoting that idea.
Yes, exactly.
You know, that's not helping the cause.
Correct. So yes, how do we get our colleagues on board? I think it's having honest conversations. It's trying not to seem like we're being critical. I mean, because that's the one thing that I think that always gets health professionals kind of up in arms, when they feel like someone is questioning them as far as their intelligence or their intentions.
I like to really point people, you know, doctors and healthcare professionals are evidence people. Like we like
that is
evidence.
True. Yeah.
And that's where I really kind of myself personally bought into this, was by reading, and even just the very basic, like reading the Health at Every Size book, the Intuitive Eating book. Though, I mean, there's academic references from here till next week that support this. This isn't just some random person who came up with a book. You know, it's when I started looking at the evidence, that's when I kind of became a believer, you could say.
Yeah.
And that's, I find that as a good, easy place to start, you know, with some people. But we're getting close to wrapping up here. I would like, if you're willing to offer some tips, because now let's just say if somebody is looking for a Health at Every Size aligned physician, that's great. If you're in the Twin Cities, that's even better, because you can go see Dr. O'Brien. But you know, that is probably not most people.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Assuming that you're going to your doctor for your regular health care, and Health at Every Size is not sort of their branded, you know, line, what is the patient, how can the patient advocate for themselves in a non-confrontational way for a better weight inclusive experience in any doctor's office?
Well, I know that some of my colleagues here have created or have found there's like a one pager about why you don't want to be weighed, and it has like kind of the evidence behind it. And I think sometimes that's helpful when you don't feel like you have the courage to say things, to have something printed out. And that can tell you a lot, depending how that.
Yes, and I know exactly where to find that. I'm going to put that in the show notes so the people can.
Because I think it really, it says it very eloquently, as far as saying, I am concerned about my health, and that's why I'm here to see you, but I don't think this is a necessary thing. And this is, you know, how I choose to have our relationship. I mean, we do it all the time for people, not equating them as similar, but someone with an eating disorder. I have patients like that, and they'll say, I don't want to see my weight, or I don't want to be weighed because of X, Y, or Z. And we do that without giving them a hard time. So, and then I think, just like we talked about before, remembering that we as the healthcare provider are people, and trying to maybe give us a little bit of leeway if we don't say and do everything perfectly. Come back for a second visit, unless it was just a horrible visit. I know I would also say, reach out to friends and ask them about who they see and how they approach things. That's how a lot of my patients have found me. Besides that Facebook page, they just, people talk.
Right.
And, find, because if at least going into it, that it's someone that you trusts, that can go a long, long way too.
Right. Well, the other thing I tell people, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, is that, you can have communication with the physician's office before your first visit. If you're
Exactly.
establishing care. Now, it may or may not be with the doctor, but certainly with the nurse,
Mhm.
to say, hey, I'm interested in seeing Dr. Jones. Is this going to be a problem if I ask not to be weighed? Because this is the reason I'm in recovery from an eating disorder, or I had this terrible experience at another office or whatever. And
Yeah.
sort of establish the boundaries on the front end. So when you actually show up for the visit, then you
feel comfortable.
More comfortable. That's another option, that people don't realize. Most doctors, I mean, almost universally, I would say they want to help you. They want you to come. Like, we don't want you to not ever come back and then come back 20 years later with breast cancer because we scared you off.
Yeah.
So, really to know that you do have a voice, and you are wanting to be heard. But I realize that's easier said than done. For a lot of people, that's an uncomfortable place to kind of speak up. So those are really helpful tips. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the show notes all of where they can find you, Michelle. And I know you have of course, Instagram, and you're starting this movement, because I'm all for it. I think that's what I'm doing. I look at this as way more than a, business. I want to change the culture. And if we get to the point that nobody needs us anymore, then we've done our job. That's a win. You and I can go on vacation to Tahiti and, retire early. But where can people find you in the cyber world if they want to connect with you?
So I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page called Authentic Health Movement. My practice where I'm working currently is Sage Prairie Family Care in Eagan, Minnesota, which is one of the suburbs. I have a Twitter account, but I don't use it very often.
Me too. That's just like a placeholder. I
can only do so much social media.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I am so grateful you took the time out of your schedule to have this conversation. Unicorn to unicorn.
Yeah. The first time a patient told me I was a unicorn, I was like, that is the best compliment I have ever had.
Yeah. Well, that's really so interesting that this entire subculture of this Facebook page in Minnesota had already knew about you and were talking about you before you knew they were.
It felt kind of weird, it'd be like, wait, people are talking about me.
It's like a fan club. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Maggie. This has just been really great. This is my first podcast, so I was a little nervous about it, but
my word.
So easy to,
good one.
You're so easy to talk to, and I'm really glad we connected, and I look forward to working together more.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. She is so great, right? Oh, I just loved having that conversation, and I hope that you continue to follow her on her social media accounts, because she has got such a powerful voice and a great mission, and she and I are essentially trying to make the same changes in the world, and that is provide a weight-inclusive healthcare environment for everyone. And if you are looking to find Dr. O'Brien, of course, if you're lucky enough to be living in the Twin Cities area, maybe she could be your doctor. For the rest of us who aren't quite that lucky, all of her contact information is in the show notes at the end of the podcast. So I really appreciate you being here today. And if you could take the time to drop a super quick 5-star rating, that would mean a lot to me and to Dr. O'Brien. And we can continue to move this message into the ears of more listeners where it belongs. So thanks for joining me here again today on the Eatfluencer podcast. Until next time, thank you so much for being here today. If you love what you've learned, follow me on social media at Maggie Landes MD, and you'll never miss a thing. You can also check out my website at maggielandesmd.com and sign up to be part of our community of eaters. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll talk again soon.